So thank you very much. So here we go. In the next 3 weeks, we'll go over the Bardo process, the death release process, going into the Bardo reconstruction, or what I call reverse engineering process. And then we'll go through the emanation stage, which is the taking of the avatar, the manifestation stage. We'll try to lengthen each of the stages so that you have a experience. And then when you practice on your own, you can condense them and merge them, stitch them together. But just as a visual cue, Keith, where are you on your way to? I'm just so curious. Yeah, you in the car.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for teaching well. I'm picking up my daughter from sports practice. But sorry. But I'm here.
It's amazing. I mean, Zoom is so amazing. Can you believe that? All righty. So since we have a little bit of time to orient this class vis-a-vis matching it with the others, just as you recall where we were in the great scheme of things, there's the 25,000 year period that has a descent into what's called the Kali Yuga. And then you go through the event horizon of the Kali Yuga. You never get stuck in hell. It's always moving. It's always in motion. It's always in a dance. It's always in transition. We are now finding ourselves debatably somewhere in the Dwapara Yuga on an ascent. And so we've come through the dark night into the twilight, into the reconstruction period, and also simultaneously the micro transition between the Piscean and the Aquarian age. So that is the astrological bardo that we're in. In the monomyth, likewise. By the way, Keith, is this showing up this time, or are we still having problems? It is. Okay, good. Let me go back. So where these maps all intersect, obviously they're all pilgrimages, they're all movements, they're all journeys. They're all types of journeys, one on its most magnificent, complex, cosmic dance. This one is more of your life trajectory. And most of you have probably already accomplished one or two of these in a lifetime, some of you just starting your first. Also having a descent into hell, where a great dragon is confronted and realized not to be an adversary, but to be a kind of sacred energy that requires unbinding or releasing, an alchemy. And then once one tastes the conversion of that alchemical process, like fear into confidence, for example, or hate into love or openness, then there is the return home journey, which is the equivalent of learning how to wield your special skill, apply your special skill, let's say. Like the individuation, same thing. Except this is an inner journey and can happen in a micro moment. It could happen over the course of time. In Jung's biography, his descent took many years of inner exploration. He was following different kinds of signs, but he was following signs nevertheless. He was following archetypal signs. They appeared in his dreams, they appeared in his evening escapades into his unconscious where he was on the borderlines or the nether world on the border of psychosis. They came in the form of visions, sometimes terrifying visions. He encountered his own soul in many forms, first as Salome, then as Philemon. A white bearded winged angel archetype. And then he crosses over. He doesn't cross over into another world. He crosses over more into this one. And that seems to be an archetype that's common throughout all these models. It isn't a journey outward into another world. It's a journey to a threshold that brings you back into this one with some sacred third eye view or perspective. It isn't an escape. It's an embodiment. So here we are into the rebirth model. We've just gone through. So what's not on this model are the four elements, the four material elements: dissolving your body, dissolving earth into water, into fire, into breath or air or wind, into space. We start this model assuming that the body has already been shed, and we start with the points of consciousness dissolving till we get to about here, clear light. So this is the disillusion phase here. Then you cross another threshold from the disillusion, you enter into the bardo. Now, they say in the Tibetan Book of the Dead that sometimes, for those of us that are untrained, the bardo is actually more like Dante's Inferno. All of that unprocessed garbage, all our traumas and our complicated feelings with people and the things that we didn't work out and our regrets and our karmic bondages, they all fire at the same time, and they appear to us as goblins and demons and ghouls and whatever, terrifying places. And because again, we have no lucidity. And so it appears just like in a waking state, it appears as if things are real. Just like the table in front of you and the computer that you're looking at and the bricks appear real in ordinary consciousness and yet can be analyzed all the way down into their inherent emptiness for the trained. The training of the yogi is to understand or to displace that default setting that reality is as rigid and as material and as separate as it feels, and instead bring in that what's called the diamond intuition, the prajna paramita, the intuition that things, although they are appearing as a hallucination, as a dream, but that's from the default setting up. That knowing, that's called the Manjushri critical blade of discerning wisdom. It's not conceptual. It's been rehearsed and refined so much so that it displaces or reorganizes the default setting of our own being. If that were the case, then maybe there would still be karmic imprints throwing up goblins and deities and fierce beings, but there would be recognition. And so there would be fearlessness. And actually, some of those wrathful beings are actually guides, especially ones that have blue light associated with them. They say in the Bardo that you should always train to follow the blue light. I mean, it's like a fairy tale, isn't it? It's like Alice in Wonderland. It's like, training yourself to follow the hero thread through the labyrinth so that you don't get lost, so that you know exactly where you are at all times. And then you can start to reverse engineer in the Bardo. They say that you're 9 times more intelligent in the bardo. You're free of all the apparatus of your delusions, so your instincts aren't the ones that are in control. Your base instincts, your food and drive and sex and protection have been disarmed. So this, for the next couple of sessions, we'll rehearse right here in the bardo of taking on the form of green Tara, for example, and more importantly, her energy. The whole thing is energetic. And then it's at a subway. I cannot believe it. It's Peter on the subway. I mean, this is like this is it. This is a bardo, incredible bardo already. Um, just that someone is on the subway. Okay. Okay, it's like a dream. It's like one of you is on the subway, one of you is in a car, someone's picking up their kid, somebody's not well and in bed, someone's on Easter vacation, somebody's in France, somebody's in Roma, somebody's in California. Such a strange thing. Somebody's in China. So we'll rehearse the bardo. We'll rehearse aligning with the energy. It's a constructive energy of green Tara. She's poised for action, and we need green Tara energy. All of us will be. I mean, the world needs us to have green Tara energy. So we'll do our best just to sample it. And then there's the construction phase. Once you're rehearsed, then you manifest. Then you see yourself back in the world, back with others, building something, building a chatra, building a stupa, building a project, building a film, building your practice, building your podcast, building your family, strengthening your family relations. If you have trouble with your spouse or partner or kids, you mend them from a constructive point of view. If you're hesitant right now and you're using the crucible to cross on through to the other side and embrace some elevated point of view, if you're looking to build out, expand your horizon, you would bring green Tara into that. You would rehearse seeing it first, and then you would execute. And in the execution, you would fall, but you would welcome falling off the bicycle because you'd understand that you can't just hop on the bicycle. I was with Bodhi the other day, and in 1 year, I saw the difference. We took him to this little motorcycle place where he, the little kids get on actual motorcycles. And last year, he got on the motorcycle, was either too afraid underneath it, but also too proud to show it. So it was like an angry tantrum, and he threw the motorcycle and threw off his helmet and stormed off. I'm not doing it. If Bodhi, like if he can't get it right, if he can't strike a homer in the first one, they'll throw the bat down and the game is over. I wonder where he gets it from. Thank God there are two parents, and he's got a wise one. That's why God gave two parents, just in case one has a lot of limitations. So then a year later, more composed, more confident, more sure of his body and his fine motor skills. So then he gets on it and he comes up to the moment where he's speeding, and there's that moment, which is the tripwire for the memory bank. And he starts to be shaky, or maybe gets too close to one of the tires. That's one of the guardrail tires. And there's a bump, and there's that moment. What's going to happen? You know what I'm talking about. That's the bump in the dark in the labyrinth. Boom, thud. And we're all frozen and looking. What's Bodhi going to do? What's he going to do? Come on, Bodhi, you can do it. Come on, Bodhi. So he reverses and he gets on and he keeps going. He keeps going and he finishes it. He finishes it. He finishes the circuit. Okay. So we all know about that energetic moment. And the thing is that this is as I'm going through this with you, I'm going through my own, obviously. I mean, just putting myself out, keep putting myself out. And every time I put myself out, stumble, thud, thud, stumble, thud. And I'm crying and pissing in my bed, worrying about this and weeping about that and frightened about this and terrified about that. And thank God I have a co-regulator with me, stellar co-regulator. And that's what this journey is, not straightforward, because we're doing something, hopefully, we're doing something big this time. Some of you have been on this journey with me for years and years and years, and you're already in your, let's call it either an upgrade, okay, because that's what it is. It's like a soul upgrade, and you can call it an expansion. Your mandala, the parameter of your mandala is expanding. I watch you. I know. I see the upgrade. Some of you I'm unfamiliar with, but I'm just going to assume you came to the Crucible because you're amidst an upgrade or because you want an upgrade. You understand the language of an upgrade. You understand the language of expansion. But the two things come together. I'm going to take some time because this is like I want to just get this point across. Of course, it's related to what we're doing together, but it's a little deviation for 1 minute, maybe two. There is a lot of you that are like me going through more tumult than you've ever experienced. A more fragility or more anxiety, you're more prone to depression, maybe you're more prone to confusion. The risks are higher, so there's more anxiety, there's more to lose. You're willing to go outside your comfort zone. The minute you do that, you become exposed. The language in psychology is exposure. It's like exposure therapy. What are you exposed to? Yes, the outward elements of conflict, someone not liking what you're doing, or you've gone too far, your acumen hasn't caught up yet, and you stumble just like Bodhi a year ago. You stumble and you give up. You want to give up. The biofeedback tells you that it's time to give up. You're overexposed. You're raw. I don't know what it is. Maybe there's conflict in your relationships more than you've ever experienced. Maybe you made a move to Bali and you're second guessing yourself. Maybe you made a move to Bali and then the world had different plans for you. You are encountering reverberation. And then we look at, okay, that's the personal. Then what does it look like on the collective? The collective is, well, that one's obvious. How many of you would raise your hand, feel that time is accelerating? Like you cannot believe how time has just flown by since like the last session, or we've already done 2 months. How many of you feel like it's 2 months? How many of you get on a call, or if you're a therapist, for me, like when I get on a call, sometimes I see clients once a month, sometimes just every other week. When I do the every other week one, it seems like I just spoke to that person a day ago. Do you know what I mean? And that's an incredible thing that's happening. That's an incredible acceleration. And it's like things are being churned up and things are coming to the surface. And on a social level, yes, this is apocalyptic in the sense of the true sense of the word. It is like a revelation. If you had an alchemical vessel, a crucible or an alembic, and you started heating things up, all the impurities would separate. There would be a separation, and what would come up to the surface would be first and foremost all the impurities. There would be an element of aggravation created by the flame. And that's what I think is happening as the planets do its dance and we head into this sea change between epochs. There is like an acceleration and it's heating things up. And as it heats things up, things are bubbling to the surface. Things that ordinarily would be kept out of sight and out of mind. And if we look at Jung, kept in the collective psyche or kept in the shadow. Well, now they're being revealed. And so like maybe a lot of strong anxiety that you've kept at bay for one reason or another by some method or another, it's breaching the dam. it's coming up. Or maybe it's because you volunteered to take on a moonshot. And now what you get is like, oh, you thought this was going to be a walk in the park? No, you volunteered for this. You went off trail. You're now climbing mountains. You've now entered thicket. It's not only thicket without a pavement, it's dark. It's not only dark, there are some unsavory animals out there. All of that is the downside, just to help each of us understand, probably at some point, whether it's now or soon, yes, that's going to be encountered. It's not personal. It's part of the journey. Like in the Buddhist way, we call it purification. So you go see your guru, or you do long retreat, or you're doing your sadhana, or you're upgrading your sadhana, or you've asked for another little bit to add to your sadhana. You go on pilgrimage. You design pilgrimage. Inevitably, what happens is that you ask the world or the universe or your psyche to relinquish or to let go or to release something that is like the landmine or the frozen fear or the frozen anxiety or whatever's been kept under the ice cap. Like I talk to Matthew almost every day, and he's doing his project. You're doing your project. If you've opened to a bigger project, and when I say project, it doesn't have to be, okay, please don't misunderstand me. It doesn't have to be a tangible thing. You're like creating content. That's too literal. Think of the most generous use of the word. Your project can just be changing your relationship to yourself. When I say just, I mean, that's enormous. It can be changing your relationship to your son, daughter, or spouse. It can be shape-shifting the environment of your corporation. It can be so many things what your project is. When you say yes to your project at this particular time, expect to encounter the ripening effect of karma. And in the accelerator, like when people come to Bali, they go, okay, I'm going for the rice field dream. But Bali's a tantric island where everybody's really, it's very tantric. I mean, they are venerating the nature spirits. They understand that the spirits are not all savory. There are some other ones that need relating to also, and that it's volcanic. People come here as a last ditch effort to save their marriage, and inevitably within the first month they're divorced. Or they come, because they think they're gonna like live a Bali dream, and they have a rude awakening, a rude awakening. It's a release of something that's been stored inside us. We asked for it. We asked for it, and we're asking for it to be included in the mandala. We said we wanted the mandala to be more expansive and more inclusive. I mean, look at the words that we're using in society. We're championing inclusion. Okay, what does that inclusion also mean? It also means the shadow. Okay, so the people that you don't like politically, do they not get included in your inclusion? Think about that. The people that you like, that you want to protect, that you want to champion, the marginalized people that you want to create a seat at the table for, expand the mandala for, you're inviting them in. And at the same time, what are you doing to the unsavory ones, the ones that you deem unsavory? You want to kick them out. You want to cancel them, literally. What we force into the shadow, what happens to them in the shadow. And especially if we start looking at this as a psychological exercise, what happens if they represent something inside of us? What happens if the unsavory people out there are projections of intentions, wishes, dreams, fantasies, urges inside of us. Be careful. Jung's warning is to be careful. What you don't keep in consciousness has a greater leverage over you and in more empowerment over you from the unconscious. My point about the expansion is that it's in equal measure disturbing and liberating. They have to come together in equal measure. So this is a great purification. It's a great purification that's going to, in a way, what is it? Send you to your knees. And then it will liberate you and lift you up. And people think, oh, I'm going to go to retreat with Geshe Tenzin Zopa and it's going to be blissful. Or this one or that one, whoever your Lama is, it's going to be blissful. I'm going to go on pilgrimage, it's going to be blissful. There hasn't been a time in the 8 years, maybe Sri Lanka is the only one, where it was blissful. It's usually hard. It's hard individually, like all my expectations were shattered and this didn't happen and that didn't happen. I remember one chap on my first pilgrimage, 2016. I remember him saying to me very, very deep into the pilgrimage when we were at Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha gained enlightenment. And, by that time, people were in the flow. A lot of people were really deep in the flow. You're in a sacred space. You're at the epicenter of the Maha Nirvana, Parinirvana, the Buddha, or not the Parinirvana, but the Mahavana. You're at the Vajrasana, the diamond throne. There's a lot of devotion. People are in the flow. And this one chap, he said, I'm not feeling it. Just not feeling it. I feel really isolated, alienated. I see everybody essentially in the flow and I don't feel like in the flow. It was huge disappointment for him. Huge disappointment. He didn't fit in. He wasn't quote unquote having an experience. Wasn't having the experience that he paid for or expected when you go on pilgrimage. It wasn't like rainbows coming out of his ears or some very deep meditative equipoise singing in Bodh Gaya. I mean, Bodh Gaya is like a circus. There's so much loud noises around and popping and, firecrackers and, security and lines. And, it's not all holy. Bali's not all holy. It's traffic and garbage and, pollution and all that. My point is that for the project, whatever that is, you have to accept purification. You have to be willing to accept purification, a lot of purification. A lot of purification means that things are going to get cut out. You're going to be uncomfortable. Things that you haven't dealt with in a long time are going to come up. And they may cripple you. They may put you on your knees. They may make you completely existentially fall into great doubt. Calamity, just like what's happening on the outward world, there's a calamity about to happen. But it's part of the expansion, right? It has to break down in order to be regenerated. How would it be possible to create a new society that's more equitable, more in tune with the ecological rhythms, let's say? How could we get there without it first breaking down? And the same with us personally. How could we get there? Where's there to get to? A more expanded version of ourselves, one that has a greater sense of inclusion of the totality of our being, one that's more altruistically aligned or motivated, has a centrifugal force of pure motivation, of purpose, one that's actually what they call in the Lamrim making life, extracting the essence of life, taking the nectar of life and making it purposeful. I was supposed to just do 2 minutes here, but I'm thinking right now in my mind, what's flashing is the stupa that's being built by Geshe Tenzin Zopa at Sum, the valley, the Beul, the hidden valley in the Himalayas, pristine, untouched. You can't you can't you can't get there easily. It's like a 5-day hike. The stupa is a symbol for world peace. It's a beacon. It's like a cell tower. It's emitting a frequency. And it's supposed to be built in such a way that it can last at least 1,000 years. It's supposed to be a railway into the future, or a communication line into the future through numerous future generations, emitting a particular kind of signal. Well, I mean, for Geshe Tenzin Zopa, this is the biggest project of his life. So he's going through his own expansion. This is his project, literal project, right? Well, so much purification is being done. So much purification is being done. For the same reason they come together. The bigger the vision you have, the more the shadow that you have to contend with, to include, to purify, to bring out of the to make what's unseen or unknown known, to burn off. So there's so many pujas being done. There's so many purifications being done. There's so many efforts being made. And I started seeing this stupid. I started thinking, oh yeah, well, every time I talk on the Crucible, or every time I go on pilgrimage, like, I now see a greater picture that all of these little efforts are just our voluntary efforts of purification, so that we can align together with our various different projects, our individual projects, with the greater one, which is our civilization reboot. So that they're happening on the personal and the collective level. You go through your own purification and expansion of your mandala, but as you do that, you are a player in a bigger matrix, a collective matrix, because you understand that this life, this singular life, maybe there's 20 years left for you, maybe there's 30 years left for you, but honestly speaking, we don't know how much time is really left for us. And so every minute counts, and the contribution that we're making is towards that. What that stupa represents is harmony. More harmony, more peace. So yeah, just as it feels cataclysmic, the thing that's paradoxical is, just as it feels so cataclysmic, so dire, so complex, it's also in equal measure capable of an enormous expansion, like atomic expansion. So I'm saying this because I'm trying to speak to each one of you that's like trying your best to get this project together. You will encounter more difficulty than you signed up for, than you bargained for. It's for your benefit and it's for your good, although it hurts. And that somehow that project is not just for you and your family members, or even for this lifetime. That project is for others in some way, and it's for the collective, for the future. All of that to say, in the next 3 weeks, and then once the Crucible's done, you go on pilgrimage, you don't go on pilgrimage. We have, I plan to have different meetings when we get to understanding how we can intersect with the Stupa project, if that's your inclination. My hope is that we can make an avenue together, some of us, as we have done in the past, to intersect, to somehow draw some of our collective energy into that stupa so that we can help support Geshe Tenzin Zopa, and in doing that, make life meaningful. Maybe that stupa is just too literal for you and just trust your intuition. Maybe there's another one that you want to be a part of. Maybe you're a filmmaker that has a broader message that's more local to you, that involves children or communities in need or whatever. That's your project. Okay. So I'm trying my best not to make this. This has always been the case with me. I don't want to make this. I mean, you could go see Ian Baker and get a better Dr. Nita. You could go see a scholar that's going to help you understand the intricacies of the tantras. That's not my bag. That's not my contribution. I don't offer that. What's most important for me is the person that showed up for this course is actively engaged in a personal process of transformation and is using all these cues, maps, different skill sets to actually try to do something different in their life. That's what's most important to me. Each stage, I want to check in about that. Hopefully, we've done enough checking in about that. Now we're entering the tantras. Some of this is congealing for me. Like I just finished the Japan thing. And it was hell. I mean, it really disrupted my relationship with Emily. It was really, really tough. And you think, how can putting a project like that together be tough? And then what I'd ask you is don't judge. You don't know what the fuck kind of karma is in my mind. It could have been anything. It could have been like dealing with my kids, dyslexia at school. Okay. It happened to be part of a pilgrimage project, and it was enough to be a catalyst for some stuff that I wasn't expecting. And I'm just saying that because we're living this stuff. We're not just trying to learn this stuff. You're probably right there in the pocket. Most of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so what we're trying to do in the big grand scheme of things with the tantras, the first leg of this is to accept, is finding the right energy for this. We're in the stage of dissolution. The outset of the journey in the Tibetan tantras is a surrender to falling apart. So that's what I'm trying to get across here is like, yes, it's falling apart. What's the right energy? What's the one we aspire for? And I'm teaching myself this too, because clearly, as evidenced by the last 6 months, I wasn't surrendering. I was resisting. And what was that like to resist? Nightmare. So who has the most to learn from this class? Me. The thing about why the tantras are so useful, why they're going to be so popular, just as the wave of psychedelics is emerging, interest in psychedelics is emerging, for a psychedelic renaissance is occurring. There will be a tantra resurgence, not the tantra they're teaching in Ubud, not the tantra that's in California, not that one. The tantra that's grounded in virtue and understands embodiment and understands that everything is made of energy and that is based in non-dualism, isn't trying to escape, but understands that everything is right here. The projector is constructing reality right here, and it happens to be that the program and the energy is cross-contaminated with lust and greed and desire and misunderstanding. In other words, Mahayana Buddhism is about getting somewhere else, and the long multi-generational task of becoming enlightened. The Tantra flips itself on its head and says, no, right now you're already enlightened. Start from the point of view of already being enlightened, doing a lot of purification, recognize that your absolute nature is already free. There's nowhere else to go. And then rehearse even for 1 second having the enlightened perspective and the enlightened embodiment right now. Rehearse it. So we will rehearse being green Tara, knowing that we're deluded, knowing that it's a visualization, a simulation, but yet what's the underlying rationale? No, you are actually that. You are actually that. The chatra is complete. What if you built your new world and your project from the point of view that the chatra was already complete? And then you forgot, and then you remembered, and then you forgot, and then you remembered, and then you forgot. Tantras are so powerful because they're about being in Gaia, not in nirvana, or that nirvana is embodied here on the planet with other people in the matrix. And that's very, from an archetypal standpoint, that is the Aquarian age where Ganymede is downward flow. The symbol of the Aquarian is of Ganymede's pot pouring elixir into the unitary stream. It's coming down. Heaven is here on earth, depending on the point of view and the energy that you contribute. If you pollute here in Bali, then your own drinking water becomes contaminated. What you put into the stream, you drink. Okay, so the disillusion, yes, you can go and study, you can go and you should look at the scripts, you should look at the Book of the Dead, you should look at the Gradual Awakening, you should look at the stages of dissolution because there's a literal death that we are planning for. All of us will die. These signs are not Tibetan. These signs, I watched my father die. I saw the signs of dissolution. You may have already seen someone die. You see them. They're human signs. They're not Buddhist signs. If you learn the signs, they have a neural feedback on your nervous system to help you surrender. So really the whole point is to surrender, the energy of letting go. When I talked to Matthew about some of these complicated upgrade issues, how are we going to do that in the expansion? How are we going to manage that? Whatever that question is for you, how are we going to manage that? Could be on a global scale. How are we going to manage the environmental crisis? Could be how we're going to have enough food for everybody. How are we going to build this sustainable project? How are we going to manage racial relations, divisions?
Can we volunteer?
What's that?
Can we volunteer? I want to be a part of the army.
Just being on this channel and not giving up, you're already part of the army. The what was I saying? Oh, the energy is surrender. Yes. The whatever the project is, where you get to that knot, that Bodhi moment where you're gripping and you're about to give up. I'm going to say this, the whole point of the death is, yes, there's the big D death to learn incrementally across your sadhana practice to get there. But then there is the metaphoric death. That's the point I want to make in this class. The metaphoric death are the impasses in your project. So if you come back from retreat with Geshe Tenzin Zopa and you have a conflict that shakes you up and stirs you up, if you fall into a nasty depression, if you have an argument, if you are taking one step and you hit a landmine, if you take one step in the labyrinth and hit your head, and your default setting is to white knuckle it, to push through, to dissociate, to get angry, to fall into despair, to fall into hopelessness. What I'm suggesting, and I'm not able to embody what I'm suggesting, is that those are opportunities for faith, surrender, trust, let go. I'm not saying I can do it. I'm trying to be as honest as I can be with you. What do we let go into? What are we having faith in? What are we trusting? I'm just going to be quiet for a second. I want you to think about that. I'm going to set up the thought experiment. And I just want you to meditate for a second. Make it as personal as you can. You volunteered for a big project. Inevitably, you will hit a stumbling block. You will hit a dead end. You will hit a moment of conflict. You will step on a landmine. You will have your automatic reactions activated. But then there is also an opportunity for something in your shadow to come online, to come into the mandala. For me, I always use force. I always push until I'm absolutely exhausted. If I hit a dead end, I'll go around and find another, and then I'll hit a dead end and I won't stop. But what that does is it destroys my body and possibly affects my relationship. What's in the shadow is a surrender, trust, is a recruitment to bring other people into the game. It's a faith that there is a divine purpose. There is a divine rhythm. I may not see it. And it's exactly when I don't see it, that I don't trust it, that I'm hammering my head against the wall. Is it possible that the conflict you had could actually be teaching you something that's still in the shadow? Is it possible that the impasse that you hit is teaching you something from the collective, beckoning forth something from the collective unconscious? Is it possible that the landmine that activates you is asking you to include something into the mandala? Once it's included, what's on the other side? What becomes the liberation? What becomes this? What does it then free the energy to manifest? So, like for example, with the pilgrimage, sorry to talk about the pilgrimage, but it's just a project. It's just an example of energy. So I'm just looking at it from the point of view of energy. Push, 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 push. The body starts to break down. I start to go nuts. I start to impact my relationship with Emily. She can't stand another minute of it. A lot of very childhood doubts come into the get unearthed. Fear of failure, fear of disappointment, all childhood stuff. You see, all childhood stuff. More purification. I go to my go-to strategy, just try harder, just try harder. My childhood strategy of trying harder was an individual kid working against a mountain. Underneath it, I don't trust people. I don't believe that anyone's coming to help. I finally hit an impasse with the Japan pilgrimage. Like, I can't go on. That's it. That's it. I'm done. I'm done. If it's going to happen, something is either going to shift or it's done. two people come into the mix. At the very last minute, two people come into the mix. Really quality people. Quality is really key. Good quality. You couldn't ask for better quality, better heart. You couldn't ask for more alignment. A minute before that happened, do you think do you think that was even on my radar? Where you risk, there's also an equal measure of blessing. You just can't see it right now. I'm speaking to people that are in the woods still. If you're aligning with purpose, if your project is for 1,000-year span, if you have dignity and virtue as your impetus, and you hit these landmines, they are for your benefit. They will expose the difficulties that remain in your psyche to be processed, but they will also expose the angels. Those angels can come in qualities. They can actually be other people. They can be a network effect could possibly take place. I mean, I think like right now our planet is so fragmented and divided. I think we're just on the cusp of discovering how quickly we could have a network effect. That's my personal intuition. Like just when the night is darkest, just when it feels like Texas and Florida are going to succeed. You know, just when the solar eclipse on the 8th. There's what's in the collective psyche. There's the collective, what hasn't been seen is also not only the ugly, but also the possibility of great unification. Fragmentation is on the surface. What's in the shadow? Unification. Division is on the surface. Polarization. What's also there in the Buddha nature? Unification. How do you get there? This is what I'm saying. The Book of the Dead and the point of today's class is to surrender and see what emerges when you stop your normal default. This is the experiment. Okay, let me check in with you. Some of you look really bored. Anybody have a comment? Anybody question? Something good, something that's generalized, something that will take us further or deeper into the material, anything at all.
I have a quick comment. I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was, I felt like you were reading my mind. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's Samson? Yeah. Thank you.
I think we need to make space also for deep listening to nature and the other beings that are around us, because I think they have a lot of wisdom that we don't have and we need.
Mary, that's so true. Yeah. I mean, I see that here in Bali. I think people working with plants, also the plant medicines, also understand this. I mean, and one of the things that I've been thinking about is, what do we have faith in? The agencies that have our back are not just spirits, but the land too, ancestors, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. There's so much in the unseen world. That can contribute to this greater enterprise of unification, of harmony. Yes, I think it's a great reminder. I think those of us that have been disembodied, live in megacities, live largely in the left brain. Part of the reclamation is to collect the right brain, to return to the ground, to expand the mandala to include nature. And the nature has so much wisdom to it, Mother Earth. So I think that's right on. Here, the wisdom keepers and where the shamans, wherever they know this through and through. They don't see themselves as conquerors of the land, but stewards, keepers, agents of the land. So there's something powerful about that. But the other word that you use that I think is really good is the listening. The deep listening. I guess that's one thing that I can tie to the surrender is, what's the opposite of active mode? And which one right now in our culture is prized and reinforced and validated? It's more that masculine, pushing, competitive, construction, producing, consuming, hypervigilant, hyperanalytic. And then what Mary's saying is the listening is the more feminine, the complement, the receptive, the intuitive, the embodied. What can come through? It's a great mystery what can come through. We have no idea who or how or what will show up.
I like to think, Miles, about the psychedelics aspect of it, and sort of a grand mycology of the world, and through our ability to connect in with the planet and really connect in with Maya, that we can come to a greater consciousness and awareness of our interconnection and that we are the earth and we need to take care of it, and we need to, really work together. Otherwise, the machine will potentially gobble us up.
Yeah. I'm getting flashes of Avatar, the movie Avatar, right? That beautiful scene where they have the uplinks to the roots of the tree that are totally like the web of interconnectivity. And meanwhile, the human machine, the shadow of the human side, the machine is devouring and
Wow.
destroying.
That's great. That's great, Miles.
Yeah. I think those of us that if you've done psychedelics, if you're around psychedelics, I think this is one avenue for the expansion beyond what into the transpersonal realm. But there are other ways. There are more ways available to us than ever before, I think. I mean, pilgrimage is one way. That's my contribution for people who don't want to do psychedelics to expand your horizon. Traveling is also just going out into nature, having a hike, going on a nature hike. Alone, let's say, even. But there are other ways, your meditation practice for this deep listening. Okay, one more comment that may send us into the last little bit of this class here.
I'm just wondering about the dark sky and where you are, and what will happen with the eclipse next week, and where we're going with all of this. And I hope you have some insight on that.
I just refer back to what Lynn said. I mean, part of, if you haven't heard the podcast, I think what I understand about the United States is it is confronting its shadow. It's having the Bodhi moment, like that moment of potential lethal danger and opportunity simultaneously emerging, I think. And nothing, my reading of the astrology is never as a predictive. I mean, how it couldn't jive with emptiness, my Buddhist take on like the worldview of emptiness is if it were like a prediction. So it's more like a possibility or a probability, and then the rest is up to human engagement. And it seems like coming up on the United States has coming up against its own death. Just like you and I may have reached an impasse. We've been in denial. There's some things we didn't look at. And you can't escape it anymore. And all that all that impurity is rising to the surface. And the thing about the Declaration of Independence and all the noble founding kind of inspiration, and also what was underneath the dark underbelly, they're all being returned to. So it's an existential question of, are we going to face the deepest, darkest secrets of our past? And are we going to prize and cherish what also makes us incredibly unique? And I keep saying this, so sorry to repeat it, but it's that the two have to come together. They always come together on an individual level and on the collective level. And if you don't do both, like if you just prize the exceptional quality without dealing the shadow will find its way to deteriorate. And if you just lurk in the shadow, well, it will gobble you up whole, like Jonah in the belly's whale. If you don't redeem, if you don't learn, and you don't remember, you don't also see the upside. So it's up to human beings. And then the thing is also like there's no final chapter. I don't believe I was talking with Matthew about this, like what's happening in the Middle East. There's there are these doomsday kind of people that want to hasten in the end of the world, the actual, word for word revelation and apocalypse. They're literalists. They want to like tinker and fabricate reality so that it matches like divine revelation in their books, their holy books. So that there will be an ultimate chapter in ascension or whatever. And then it'll all end. And of course, it'll all end with their special people arrive, the special ones. And then the rest of us will be left behind in their magical spaceship, And maybe Musk has, the billionaires on the world, they'll all go to Mars and they'll leave the rest of us. It's whatever variant of it that you can imagine, whatever ivory tower scenario of a few special people get to leave or live and the rest, perish. It's not like that. It's not like that. There's no final thing. If we don't get our act together, if we don't learn, if we don't redeem in the belly of the whale, then it gets harder. It gets harder and harder and harder until we finally concede. That's what I'm talking about, is when will we concede? When will, instead, the other energy is doubling down. And the spiritual energy is relinquish, let go, let something else come to the fore. Let it dissolve and then come together. Let the left brain, reach its impasse in uncertainty of science so that faith can be renewed. Let the masculine exertion reach its exhaustion point so that the receptive intuitive can come online. That's possible. If it doesn't happen on the 8th or the, in this year or next year, it'll keep unraveling until enough, what's that called? Like a consensus. Consensus. I mean, because it's all collective and conscious. Enough of us raise the consciousness to the degree. I mean, that's what this whole thing, that's what the stupa is about. It's a beacon for what? It's a beacon for human consciousness. Can Geshe Tenzin Zopa do it alone with a Tibetan style stupa in the Himalayas? No, you're a filmmaker, you're a podcaster, you're a school teacher, you're an entrepreneur. Everybody's the archetype of the Aquarian age is that everybody's vote counts. Everybody has a contribution. It's not a hierarchy. It's Musk can't do it. Bono can't do it. Obama can't do it. Whoever it is, Dalai Lama can't do it alone. So it is a big deal. Your project is the biggest deal of your life. I hate to be grandiose and dramatic about it, but that's what I was hoping for with the Crucibles. Like, okay, 100 people get together in this little pod, and how many pods are all over the world are doing this kind of work? A lot of them. Everybody's working on themselves. Everybody's working on a project. Everyone sees the tea leaves on, they see the signs of the dissolution. Hopefully they've tapped into some ancient wisdom that's telling them what's the right energy to bring to the signs of dissolution. And that was the point of today's class. Is there one more great comment, question?
Yeah, Miles, I'd like to know a little bit more about bringing Tara into our lives, and obviously I do that practice, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how it relates to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, great. So that's a good so the Tara, all the deities are energies. They're just they manifest because human beings' brains are set up in a certain way where we have these archetypal images as ways to relate, but they're fundamentally energy. What kind of energy? Well, depending on the deity, we're talking about different kinds of energy. So look at them as qualities or energies in the psyche that you're using imagery, sound, vibration, mantra, mudra, different kind of scripts so that you're pulling out of you, drawing out of you, or aligning out of you a kind of energy. So green Tara is really, first of all, it's a feminine archetype, which we need more mother energy to complement and sit side by side with the father energy, the balanced father energy, not to displace, but to balance, to bring into balance, to bring into harmony. The other thing about green Tara especially is that she's engaged. And this is like we're in the death reconstruction. So we need that right kind of energy. The iconography of green Tara is one leg is in meditative equipoise. It's in the half lotus. And what that symbolizes is the samadhi on the one-pointedness on the nature of reality. So firmly situated, grounded in emptiness, openness, possibility, quantum possibility. So that's hope. That's hopeful. I mean, emptiness isn't supposed to be daunting or paralyzing. It's supposed to be, the thing about the chatra is always always complete. The fundamental Buddha nature is always pure. The fundamental luminosity of mind is always pure. It's hopeful. It's a hopeful message. Unrelentingly, unpenetrably hopeful. I mean, just as I say that, I'm thinking, I could have used a little green Tara energy at each of these bumps and the bruises on the on the labyrinth, right? Because what each of them were kicking up in me was fear and hopelessness, despair. So the samadhi side, the concentration in the nature of reality, is half of her being. That's where she's coming out of. She's emerging from the womb of emptiness. But the other leg is extended forward in activity. It's already primed to engage. So it's one foot in emptiness, in non-dualism, and the other foot in form, reconstructive. How are we going to shapeshift? What do we need to do? What do we need to infuse? What vibration do we bring into the matrix? So if you go back to the avatar and Keith with the mycology, like and Mary with the Mother Earth, just as we go to war on the surface of things, underneath it, there's incredible wisdom and already a kind of template for harmony in nature. It's already there. It knows how to heal itself. It knows how to rehabilitate itself. If you just let it be, it knows how to go where it needs to go. It has its own rhythm. It's in like an intact rhythm that we've been disconnected from. So that leg forward is like infusing into the hallucinatory world, the dreamlike world, compassion, harmony, dignity, when needed, ferocity, but it comes from good-heartedness, patience, all the virtues, all these mother instinct virtues, also with the fangs and teeth when needed. I mean, definitely when needed. So the more we call on her, I mean, I think I'm growing into a sense of twofold thing. Like the part of me is, as I get older, a part of me is not as resistant as I used to be as a kid. Just calling on having faith that there is a divine force in the world, like prayer. I mean, here in Bali, they do treat other agencies as not just as psychological archetypes of their own mind. We are in sharing space with other entities. That's a far fetch for a materialist, I know. For scientists, scientifically minded rationalists, it's hard to see the world that way. But I'm growing more acclimatized to that. There are also angels in other people. The better sides of human nature surround us in how we interact with other people. We are tuning forks for each other. So we're also drawing out the better natures of people that we interact with. And that's how you get that repeated effect, that consensus reality can shift because there's enough, you reach that tipping point where enough consciousness on the planet is aligned. I do believe that that's on the table at this juncture in our lifetime. That's sort of what I feel is possible in this window of time, is that we are having a great purification and we are undergoing a great humanitarian crisis or trial. But what's on offer is that consensus vibration and expansion of consciousness can happen with enough people that a very sudden shift can happen. I don't know what that moment is called. There's a word for it where enough iteration happens that it reaches this kind of threshold and then it can amplify and magnify and iterate itself. What's that?
Tipping
What's
point?
that word called? No, there's another word for it, but yes, it's kind of a tipping point.
Confluence, an atomic chain reaction.
There's a specific word for it.
Is the 10th
Inflection?
monkey or something?
You get my drift. You get the idea. There's that. It's unexpected, and then you get enough Yeah, I mean tipping, let's use tipping point, but there is another word. But yeah, so that's within our lifetime as a possibility. That's one of those quantum possibilities that I think just when the night is darkest, something else could happen and enough people wake up and then who know, you don't know. And like look, it's situated right next to AI. It's like AI emerges, which represents the, artificial side of us. We've engineered an artificial side of us that could reiterate to such a point that it go for the singularity where it spins out of our control. Well, if that's possible, it has an equal and opposite possibilities also there, but it's probably in the shadow, which is enough of our humanness comes online, and we have no idea what that will do. I mean, we don't. Enough of our dignity comes online, enough harmony is restored. We don't know when it would happen, but we kind of know what it would take to happen. So that's the Green Tara prospect. Is like we'll bring in Green Tara for the next 3 sessions. Some of you just came from Geshe Tenzo Zopa doing Green Tara. Green Tara has been around our consciousness for some time. It's a great archetype. It's a great energy. It's the appropriate Aquarian archetype. Okay, guys, let's pray a little bit, whatever that means to you. Covered a lot of ground. Let me just reiterate the main theme of the disillusion phase is the surrender, the relinquish, the allowing something to emerge, the faith. Jung would call this the faith in the self. It was hard won. He wasn't relying on his rational mind. He turned himself over to the unconscious. In the trials of the unconscious, he discovered some greater totality outside of himself. And then he spent the rest of his life trusting that it would speak to him, it would guide him, it would orient him. And then his projects were all about alerting people to the possibility of this adventure for themselves, so that they could become more whole human beings. That was the purpose of their life, to become whole souls. Just meditate a little bit, breathe. If you are familiar with Green Tara, just see her there. If you're unfamiliar with Green Tara, then one of your assignments is to find an image of Green Tara that you like, that you resonate with. Just feel the presence, the Divine Mother. It's just loving energy. And if it feels authentic, then just pray. Just pray. Pray for help with your project. Okay, 3 more classes, guys. Thank you very much.